Wow, this has been a very strange month. The month of February 2021. This subject, this title of this video may sound like a clickbait, but it's true. It's how I tested positive for COVID 3 times. So I tested positive 3 times. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna walk you through my journey. Like I said, it's been a very strange and it seems like it was a perfect storm the way this happened. I'll be turning 50 this year, so I'm gonna share this story with you guys, and it might help somebody. I wasn't gonna do it, but I said I'm gonna go ahead and do it. But I had to backtrack everything and figure out how in the world did this happen to me and me. Well, it was me and my wife. We've been traveling everywhere this last year in 2020. My wife went to Mexico. We both went to Florida. We've been all over the place, Louisiana, Texas, you name it. I've worked on a couple of jobs and we never had any problem. But this year was very strange. And I had to backtrack. And I'm going to start on January the 23rd. January the 23rd, 2021. Okay. It was a Saturday. We went to my wife, great aunt's funeral, and they said she had died from COVID. Then right after that, me and my wife traveled to Louisiana, and that was that Sunday. So I'm reading this here off my phone. I got it all documented. I ain't gonna read word for word, but I'm gonna go through it. So on that Monday, this is where everything started. I think me and my wife was at a Vic and Anthony's. We were sitting at the bar, and we was eating. Was eating a few things, and there on my left hand side was this guy. At the bar, you tell you don't have no mask or anything. But this guy on the right hand side, he was probably 4 or 5 feet away, but he was just talking and talking and talking. And he'll turn to me and he'll talk to other people on the other side. And he was going on and he was just talking loud. And I turned to my wife. I said, I don't know. This is kind of funny right here. Maybe we should move and well, we stayed there about 15, 20 minutes. We ate our food, but we left. So we stayed in Louisiana that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The Wednesday we traveled home back to Houston. So I think that's where we got contagious at, from that guy. I think because we weren't feeling any symptoms, but the symptoms came on that Friday for my wife. That Friday, which was the 29th. But let's go back to the 27th. When we got back on that Wednesday, my son was having problems with his vehicle. So me and my son was in the car together, and we was just going around, and because we had to drive to a mechanic, we was talking. So we was in this enclosed area. Like I said, I think we had got infected or contagious that Monday. So you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 days. And I've been doing some research on this stuff. And during those 3 days, you're really contagious, you know. So right there, my son was right in that 3 day thing range with me. We was in the car, we was talking probably in the car for 30, 40 minutes. We went to other places. So I spent the whole day with my son, we was trying to get the car fixed. Then the 28th, January 28th, which was a Thursday, just a regular day. We just did our things. Then on the 29th, that Friday, that's when my wife had started having shortness of breath. She was having problem breathing. She was getting tired really fast. But she was doing okay. The Saturday she was kind of tired and stuff like that. And Sunday, she was having her symptoms started getting a little worse. So what we did, I took her to the ER on Monday, February the 1st. So we went to the ER, and you got to put on your mask and everything. We walked in there, and they asked my wife what was going on, and she explained to the nurse, she was having shortness of breath. She was having pains in her leg and some more symptoms. And the nurse looked at her and said, "Well, I think you may have COVID." So what they did, they took her in the back, and I went back there with her. We got a room, and they took her blood and everything, and they did this COVID test. They stick this thing way down your nostrils, and they roll it around for about 15 seconds. Then they take it off. It's one of those instant tests. So we was there about 30, 35 minutes. You know, my wife started feeling better. Her blood pressure and stuff was under control, her oxygen level. So about an hour had passed, and they came back, and the nurse told her, "Hey, we got prescriptions for you." And you, they did an X-ray and said she had like some liquid or pneumonia or something in her lungs. So that was why she was having problems breathing and everything else. So we was getting ready to leave, and my wife said they never told me the results of my COVID test. I said no, they haven't. So we asked the nurse. Said, what was her results? You guys never did give it to us. She said, oh, she positive. Okay, so she positive with COVID. She got COVID. I said yes, and she said she needed to quarantine for about 14 days, and you guys probably should quarantine. You know, so you know me. If you've seen some of my videos, if I have a car, my transmission, and one mechanic tell me it's the transmission, I'm gonna go see two or three other mechanics, make sure I get the right results. So, I looked at my wife. She was hurting pretty bad, and she wasn't feeling. She was having all these symptoms. If you read about COVID, shortness of breath, um, smell, and things like that. But I wasn't having any of those symptoms yet. She had a cough. So I was said, okay. So Monday, I went to the CVS that same day. It was probably about 2 or 3 o'clock. And I went there. I thought it was an instant test, but when I did the test, they told me, well, I'll get my results back in 2 or 3 days. I said, no, I can't wait that long. And they told me that there's some facilities around town that has instant tests. So I went on and did the test there at CVS and gave it to them. And they put it in this box, and they're gonna email you or text you the results back in about 2 days. But you know what I mean? I'm not satisfied with that. So I went and paid $100. About I'll say about an hour later, I found this spot, and they charge you $100 to do the instant test. So I paid $100, and they did the instant test. They stick the thing way up your nose and swirl it around for about 15 seconds. And that nurse, whoever was doing it, they went back, and about 10 or 15 minutes later, she came back to me. She said, well, your test results are positive. I said, wow, okay. So they are positive. And me, I haven't got the test back from CVS, which I probably get back tomorrow. I said, well, let's see what that test say. I'm thinking to myself, okay, so me and my wife had already started our quarantine thing on that Monday. And I was talking about the job. I said, I was waiting on this job. We've been waiting on the job for since November. That's when the job I was supposed to go to, the inspection job, supposed to start in November. So I said, well, they're not going to call yet. Maybe they'll call after the quarantine. And believe me, as soon as we said that, the next day we were sitting outside on Tuesday. We was quarantining. We had our little water and stuff, and wife wasn't feeling too good, and I was feeling okay. I didn't have no problems. We kept all the kids and stuff away. We wore our masks and stuff in the house. And I want to give a shout out to my daughter and my niece for taking care of my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, while we was going through this. They stepped in, they came in, and they took care of her. They cleaned her, they fed her, it's because she lives with us. So we was very scared about that, because we didn't want her to get COVID, because my wife aunt had passed away with COVID. And then that same day, this is Tuesday now I'm talking about, she got a phone call saying her other aunt passed away from COVID. But while we were sitting there, I was talking about the job, and there you go, my phone rang. Oh my God. And I said to myself, there was my boss, and I picked the phone up. He said, you ready to work? The job is almost ready to kick out. They're going to call you and do the drug test and, do the background check. And this thing, that right there, oh man, I said, to me, it was just bad timing. I talked to him, because I know this job kept getting put off and off. I said, maybe it'll get put off again, So I said, yeah, I'm ready. But, I wasn't going out there. I'm not going to put myself out there with these people until I go through this quarantine. And then after I get out of quarantine, I want to take a test and I want to test negative. If I don't test negative, I'm not going to that project because I respect those guys too much. So that was that Tuesday. So now I'm a little stressed out. I know this story is like a perfect storm. I'm a little stressed out, and I'm talking to my wife. She said it'll be, she tried to calm me down. She said, "Hey, it'll be okay. Maybe they won't start the job in time, but and all that." So as soon as I got off the phone, the company called me and say, "Hey, we need you to take your drug test, and we need you to do the background check. We need you to fill out all this paperwork." And she asked me, she said, "When can you take the drug test?" I said, "Well, let me take it on Friday." She said, "Well, we'll give it to you Friday because they want you out there by Monday." So I'm stressed about that. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna take it." So I'm going through this process and going through this process, and I'm a little stressed, So my drug tests and stuff was going to be Friday, which that Friday was going to be February the 5th. So let's go to February the 3rd. This is on a Wednesday. Okay. And while I was sitting there outside, me and my wife were drinking a lot of water sitting outside on our patio. This was Wednesday. So I'll say probably about 9 o'clock in the morning, I got a text from CVS with my results that I took on Monday. So the results came back. It didn't come that Tuesday. It came that Wednesday. So that was 2 days. And I looked at that results, and as soon as I clicked on it, it said you tested positive for COVID. So that's two right there. So that's two positives. So I was getting a little convinced now that I did have COVID. So I kind of accepted it a little bit, and my mind was just running. And at the same time, I think that my immune system started going down because I started getting a lot of stress because I never get sick in my life. If you speak to any of my family when I was growing up, no problem. May had a little cold here and there and nothing like that. But I was getting stressed because I'm a job I waited on, which I thought it was a perfect job for me. It seemed like it was slipping away slowly by day. So that day, that's on that Wednesday, and I got all this stuff written down on my phone. I documented, you know, like my wife, we had this oxygen monitor, we had a blood pressure monitor, and my wife had bad symptoms. She had a cough, and next thing you know, I started getting a little cough and started getting dehydrated. And maybe I was, they call it asymptomatic. There's a lot of people out there as asymptomatic that they don't have the symptoms, but they do have COVID. And after a couple of weeks, they probably form an immunity to it. They never had any of the symptoms, a loss of smell. If my wife never tested positive, I probably wouldn't have never had any of these symptoms. I wouldn't have knew I had COVID. So I could have been going around giving this stuff to people within those three days. But the more I read about it, the more I was learning about it. Like I said, the first 2, 3 days, you're really contagious. After that, it started drying up, and you're not that contagious as time going. After 14 days, it's really gone. That's why people, if they test you at your job and you test positive, they tell you to quarantine for 14 days. And then you could come back to work without testing again. So once you finish your quarantine period, they consider you not contagious no more. So you can go back to your job. So you don't have to take no test. But I said I wanted to test. Before I go on that job, I was going to test again and make sure I was negative. So that day I started feeling symptoms. One thing I noticed, this was on a Wednesday because I probably had accepted everything that, hey, I am positive. So my blood pressure, I started monitoring my blood pressure. My blood pressure is usually 140/90. That's still high, but to me, that's probably normal. I'm a big guy. But I noticed that my blood pressure on that Wednesday went up to about 195/117, almost 200/120. That's not normal for me. 'Cause my blood pressure never go that high. And this right here, that's what scared me right there because of my blood pressure. And I did not tell my wife because if I told my wife, I know she probably, hey, we need to take you to the ER and all of that stuff. So I kind of hid that from her for a few hours, and I took one of my clotidine, one of my other blood pressure medicine, and it didn't bring it down. And this started wearing me a little bit, man. And I started walking a little bit, and maybe I started get on a elliptical. Maybe I said if I, get my blood pressure, my heart rate up and run something, it may bring my blood pressure down. But 30 minutes, 40 minutes had passed, and now my mind's really messed up. I hadn't used the restroom, hadn't went to the restroom to pee or anything, so or urinate, as my wife says, she used the correct term. So I'm thinking in my mind, I said, "Oh man, maybe my kidneys messed up, and now I'm gonna be on dialysis." And because my wife is a dialysis nurse, so I know all about it, a little bit about dialysis. And I started thinking, I said, "What I'm gonna tell my kids?" And now I ain't gonna be able to work. I'm gonna have to go through dialysis 3 days a week. Man, this thing started bothering me. So, and I noticed that that same day, my smell, I started thinking about the different symptoms. And I probably wasn't smelling correctly a few days before, but it's in my mind. So I started like Clorox. I couldn't even smell Clorox, or we had some deodorant. I put the deodorant on my nose, and to my nose, I couldn't smell that stuff. So now I'm starting to have these symptoms, So this was all happened. This is on February the 3rd, on that Wednesday. So then on Thursday, my wife had started feeling a little better, and I thought about it. I was sitting there. I said, my son was around me on that Wednesday, and that during those 3 days, that is when you're really contagious. So I said, maybe we need to get my son, and my son is 21 years old. And so I took my son, and we went to this instant thing. He was there in the front, and we did the instant test. So they did put the swab up his nose and all that. He wasn't having no symptoms, none at all. And when they did the test, about 10 minutes later, they came back and said he was positive. So there you go. You got me, my wife, my son all in this house, and my mother-in-law in a room, and she's really, really sick. She can't walk. She can't hardly feed herself. She can't do anything. So my wife was really nervous. So we got all three of us, my son quarantined upstairs in his room. Me and my wife stayed together in my room. And like I said, my niece and my daughter, they came in and they distanced themselves from us. They wore masks and they took care of my mother-in-law. And like I said, I appreciate everything they did for us because my wife made a couple of calls and told some of her family and friends that she had COVID, and nobody really come around to help out. At least somebody could have dropped some soup off at the door or something like that. But you find out a lot when you go through some things. Who's going to be there for you? Is your family going to be there for you? Is your son or daughter or your husband or wife? But this was a big learning experience for me, and it made me realize and rethink a lot of things in my life, especially on Wednesday when I thought I was going to have to be on dialysis and all that stuff. And it was just very, very strange. So me and my wife, we started getting the vitamins and stuff, started taking vitamins, drinking a lot of orange juice, made sure our son and daughter and my niece was drinking orange juice and different vitamins. We bought a vitamin pack. We spent a lot of money on these vitamins, and I took them for a couple of days. I said, forget that. I'm not going to be taking no 5 or 6, 7 pills a day before I even hit 50. I don't need all those vitamins. I cook me some collard greens or whatever. I'm not going to be taking all these pills. But I did do it for a couple of days, and I didn't notice any difference. I know you got to wait a week before that stuff get in your system, but I did a video of the vitamin pack. If you want to see it, looking at drop down right up there. It'll have those vitamins that we were taking. It was like $150 for this package, and you can go through that package in 2 weeks. So you'll be spending $300 a month on vitamins. I'm not doing that. I'm kind of a little tight with my money. Not too tight, but some things I'm not gonna do. So let's go to Friday. This is the 5th. And I skipped something up there on the 3rd because I was going through a lot of stuff. And I got a phone call saying that my friend had passed away. He was in a car accident, a big guy. And that guy always called me and we talked sometimes. He already had get on my advice. He was a young kid. I think he was just making 30. He may have hit 30. So I thought he passed away way too soon. So all that stuff was stressing with me. And then I got a call from my sister, my oldest sister, saying that my nephew was in the hospital for COVID. And my nephew is just like my brother. My oldest sister is like 71, 72 years old, and her oldest son is 52. So her oldest son is 2 years older than me, but we grew up together like brothers. So, and he wasn't taking care of himself. This guy was over probably pushing 400 pounds, and he hadn't taken his blood pressure medicine for 2 years. And they just found him in a bed laying down. He'd been laying down for 3 days. He couldn't even move. And they finally got him to the hospital. They had to call an ambulance out there, and that's the country, and they didn't want to come out there. But they finally convinced him and told him, hey, because they put an oxygen monitor on his finger. And I'm going to get this oxygen monitor. And what they did, they put it on his finger. I don't know if you could read that, but his oxygen level was right at 60. And you see mine's 96. You see my heartbeat. Probably a little rapid right now, but your oxygen level shouldn't drop below 90. You know, so my wife's a nurse, and she did for her nursing thing, she had to do a head to toe evaluation on me. So we already had all of this stuff, and also what's good to have is this temperature monitor right here. Go and check your temperature. So like if I check my temperature right here. And if you can see that, I don't know if you see it, 97.7. That's about average for me. I run 98, 90, 98.5, but you want one of those, and you also want one of these blood pressure monitors, especially if you got a problem with high blood pressure. As you see, I discussed to you how my blood pressure had went up. But let me get back on track right here. But like I said, my nephew, he was in bad shape. A big dude, and like I said, it's probably pushing 400, maybe way over 400 pounds. This good dude, strong dude, powerlifter in 1987, 88, 89, won state powerlifting, bench pressing 400 or 500 pounds, squatting probably to 1,000 pounds. Won state his sophomore, junior, and senior year powerlifting. Big old dude, but he couldn't even get out of the bed, And I'm hearing all this stuff. And they took him to the hospital and they ran tests on him. They told him, he had COVID. He had already tested for his job because his son had COVID a couple of weeks before that. So they work at the same job. So he knew he had it, but he didn't tell nobody. He just lay there in their room by himself. He lived by himself. And somebody went over to see him, and he was laying in the bed. He couldn't even move, could barely breathe. But when they got him to the hospital, like I said, they checked his oxygen level. It was right at 60. And they said that his kidneys was failing also. So all this stuff stressing me out. I'm listening to this. And I think all of this happened that Wednesday. I had skipped it before when I was telling you the story. But I think all that stuff happened on Wednesday. So I didn't tell my family or nothing about me having COVID and everything, because I know they was concentrating on taking care of our nephew, concentrating on taking care of our nephew, So what they did for him to help him recover, they gave him some plasma. And these plasma with the antibodies in it helped him, so helped him fight off that COVID because he was in bad shape. So I'm really stressed about that, So that Friday, I did take my drug test and everything, and I went back home. But before I went back home, after taking my drug test, I went back and took another COVID test. I said, well, maybe I done tested positive twice. Let me do another instant test, because if I test negative, I would be able to go on the job that Monday, the following Monday. So once I finished the drug test and everything, I went by that place again. This is on a Friday. So like I said, I tested Monday, and this is like 4 days later. So it was a different nurse there. So she did the COVID test, stuck the thing up my nose, and she came back about 15 minutes later. And she looked at me and she said, well, you tested positive. I said, wow, okay. So I paid another $100 to do this test, and I tested positive. So that's where, when I said I tested positive 3 times, I wasn't lying. I was telling the truth. 3 times I tested positive. So I accepted it then. I said, I ain't gonna do no fourth time. I'm gonna just deal with the third time. Maybe if I would have tested the Saturday or Sunday, it probably would have tested negative. I don't know, cause this thing run its course. So that was that Friday, and like I said, I'm thinking now I'm a little stressed, because they wanted me to be on the job on Monday. So I can't make it on Monday because I won't be out of quarantine until that Friday. Because they said if you test positive, you need to wait 10 days. But if you don't test, you need to wait 14 days. So I had tested positive, so I needed to quarantine. So I'm thinking of, hey, what in the world am I gonna tell my boss? I can't just show up without finishing quarantine. Like I told you before, I'm not going to do that. I'm not that type of person. I let the job go. I know it's one of those, I call it the perfect job. And it's a quote I heard. It said, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Tell God your plans and he'll laugh, because his plans are not our plans. And I remember I was sitting there thinking, I told my wife, uh, I don't know, this was a perfect job for me. I'm gonna have to call my boss and just let him know I'm not gonna be able to make it. I said, I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray that it rain. Maybe if it rained, the job will get shut down for a couple of weeks, and that'll give me time to go through my quarantine. And I'm a person, it's bad to say, I do not pray. I don't pray that often. I was born up, my father was a minister. I got 2 brothers that are ministers, and that should be bad for me to say, hey, I'm not a minister. I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I believe that if you do things, good things, eventually good things will happen to you. I help a lot of people. I go around doing things. I don't just don't go around telling everybody or advertising what I do. I go to my daughter's school. Right before I went last year, I fed the whole school with my food truck. I didn't get on Facebook and announce that, but I fed, it was about maybe 400 kids and maybe, I don't know, 50 teachers. But we fed the kids chicken nuggets and French fries, and we fed the teachers chicken wings, different flavors, and some French fries, and they enjoyed every bit of it, because eating that cafeteria food, it they gave them a good break. And in the district she teach at is a very poor district. So I did that out of my heart. I didn't go around and telling everybody. And after I did that, it seemed like my blessings started going. But I'm gonna get back to the story here on this COVID. And it was Friday, and I told my wife I'm gonna pray for rain, and I did pray. I said, God, I told him, hey, this it's like a perfect storm. Everything's happening, and I don't know what to do. And this particular job, I wanted it, I needed it to try to get caught up on a few things. And I told my wife, I said, well, Friday, I said, I'm gonna have to call my boss Saturday, just let him know, and that we tested positive for COVID, and I need a quarantine for 10 to 14 days, and because I don't want to go out there and cause infect nobody else. So I was getting ready to call him, but then I thought about some more things. My niece came over. Let me back up. I missed that part of the story. My niece, she's 27, and nephew, he's two years old. They came over that past Saturday and Sunday. And I was all up in my nephew's face, and you talk, he was eating peanuts and stuff out of my hand, and we're talking, I'm throwing him up in the air. And I said, oh my God. I called my niece. I told my wife we need to tell him to go test. So I told him wait about 3 days, before they test. So they waited 3 days and they tested negative. So, like I said, the contagious part of everything is this COVID I was reading about is like from the day you get it, about 3 to 4 days. After that, it started drying up, and it's not that airborne, but it's still possible to pass it on. So, my niece and her son, they went in, tested, and they tested negative. And like I said, that you're more contagious from the day you get it, and 3 to 4 days after that, you're very contagious. So, like my son, he got infected with the COVID within that 3 days. Like when we came back from Louisiana, me and my wife, so we was monitoring our blood pressure and things fine. And the Saturday came, and I went in my garage and I picked up my phone and I said, well, I already had what I was going to tell my boss. So I dialed his number and it rang like 2 times. And before I could say, I said, hello. He said, before I could say anything, he said, Glenn, the job, we've been having problems with the pipe. So it's gonna be delayed probably another week or two. So I said, do I need to come this week or next week? She said, no, probably in a couple of weeks. And that right there took a lot of pressure off of me, because I didn't even have to say anything about it. The job just kept getting delayed and delayed. So I needed that 2 weeks to go through my quarantine and do the test again, So that right there was a blessing right there in the skies. I needed to go to work, but I knew I couldn't. So I didn't even have to say anything. He just told me that, hey, he apologized to me for the job being delayed some more because I was supposed to have been up there in November, and it's February now. So that was a relief right there. Okay, this is still Saturday, February the 6th. Around 9 o'clock p.m., I got in the shower and I took a little steam shower. And I started feeling really bad. Start feeling weak and felt like my body was a little hot. And I thought maybe that was from the steam. So once I got a shower, that steam, I stayed in that thing for probably about an hour. And then around 10:15 p.m. that night, it's on February the 6th, I checked my temperature. And my temperature was usually around 97.9 or 98.5. It had never went over 98.5. I checked my temperature around 10:15 p.m. and it was 101.9. And I never had a temperature before. So I had a temperature and I had problems with my stomach. So I went to the restroom and I was drinking plenty of cold water and stuff like that. My temperature wouldn't go down. So I went and told my wife about my temperature. She said, well, you can wait about 30 minutes. And then if it don't go down, say you want to take a little Tylenol to bring your temperature down. So I started reading about temperature, what causes your body, why will you get a temperature? And it was kind of strange how your body worked. Viruses can't survive over certain temperatures. So your body heats up to kill that virus. So my body was fighting off this virus. Like I said, I tested three times and I was positive. So I knew I had this COVID and I had a temperature for like 3 hours. So between 10:15 and 1:15, I was getting up and out of bed, using the restroom, urinating a lot. And it was kind of strange, the year when I was urinating, it wasn't clear. It was kind of yellowish and I say it was heavy. It's like I was getting rid of bad toxin and stuff out of my body. We hadn't drank anything. We was just drinking water and maybe orange juice and different stuff like that. And about 1:15, my temperature had went down. My temperature had went down to 98.5, and it seemed like a lot of metallic stuff had exited my body. I felt so relaxed. I felt like my body was purged. You know, I felt really good. That was 1:15 that morning. That was on February the 2nd. 7th. I mean, February, that was on February the 7th. At 1:15, I felt really good. I felt like a brand new person. And this was only like 7 days within the quarantine. And my temperature had went down. But then later on that day around noon, my temperature kind of went back up a little bit to about 100. So I thought maybe the temperature of my body, maybe it was the Tylenol had brought my temperature down. Now it started rising up again, but I ain't taking no more Tylenol because it didn't get over 100. So my body must have been still fighting off this virus. So I started drinking plenty of water, and I cooked me some collard greens. That's my favorite thing, collard greens. I made me some collard green soup. Me and my wife was sitting soup my son, and as he was going through quarantine too, because he tested positive. On February the 8th, this was that Monday. So we've been in quarantine for probably about a week now. We've been isolated for everything from everybody. And during those 7 days of from February the 1st through February the 6th, we didn't have an argument. So I knew things were getting better on February the 8th, that Monday, because me and my wife had an argument. We had an argument about Biden and Trump. She, she voted probably for Biden. And I didn't tell her who I voted for. Yeah. She said, "Yeah, you voted for Trump." I said, "Well, whatever." I said, "Biden." I said, "I don't care about him." We was going back and forth, and you said Trump. She tell me Trump don't know how to say it. I said, "Well, he's not a politician, so I knew we was feeling good. So we got in the vehicle. We went for a ride. We needed some fresh air, so we just drove around. We didn't stop by nobody. We just opened all the windows and just got some fresh air, rolled around the Beltway for about a couple of hours because we've been in the house. On us, we usually gone all the time. And being in the house for 7 days, it's like he was locked in prison. Yeah. But we started feeling better about, like a week later. So then on February the 9th, on a Tuesday, I started getting a little congestion. I started coughing a little bit, but it wasn't nothing bad. And that could be because of all the exercise I was doing the week before trying to get this stuff out my body. Then that's probably one of the worst things you can do is exercise during this time. But I was doing it because I was trying to get ready for the job, and I thought maybe if I exercise, I could sweat all this stuff out, but it didn't work. So the best thing you could do is during times like this, just relax and turn off the TV. Because that first week I had the TV on, and the only thing they was talking about was COVID, people dying from COVID. This man had to get a lung transplant, had to get a kidney transplant. You hear all of this negative stuff, and I know my wife was going through a lot more than me, and I was concerned about her for her lungs, and because she was having problems breathing. And you turn on TV and you see all of this negative stuff, and so we just turned the TV off, and I just started reading. I just started reading instead of watching the news because the news gonna, wow, I guess that's where they get their money from, just giving negative publicity. It's just negative things, and that's not a way to go when you going through quarantine. You don't need those TVs on. You just read and study your body and study different things and learn about yourself. Educate your mind. Go on YouTube, and you can become creative during times like this. And like I said, I started losing my sense of smell. But then on February the 9th, my smell started returning. And my taste never lost my sense of taste. Seemed like my taste had got stronger. I could taste stuff a little bit better. Right around February the 9th, I could start smelling different things. Like the Clorox. But I had to put them up a little closer. I could start smelling different things. Oranges and uh, everything. So I was happy about that because I hear some people don't even get their sense of smell or taste back. Sometimes it takes months for that stuff to return. I'm talking about months. So it was just strange. But what it was affecting me the most was my blood pressure because it was fluctuating all over the place. Like this is on February 9th. I checked my blood pressure again around 12 noon, and my blood pressure had went up to like 200 over 105. And it seemed like my meds and stuff wasn't working. Okay, and my goal, my blood pressure did go down after I took one of those I call them clotidine or clotidine, whatever. I can't say those words. My wife, she's a nurse, she know those words. She just throw them off the top of her head. But then my blood pressure got down to 131 over 86. And I thought to myself, like I said, my smell started coming back. I was able to smell. My goal is to lose about 25 pounds. I know I'm gonna have to start doing right. I'm gonna have to start exercising because this blood pressure thing kind of scared me because I was reading it. It say people with underlying conditions like blood pressures and stuff, this COVID do affects it. So now all this stuff is in my mind. Before I probably was asymptomatic, but all this stress, the job, and my nephew sick, my wife, aunt dying, my buddy got killed in an accident. All this stuff is happening this same week. I call it a perfect storm. Everything started happening, and then we're gonna go to February the 10th. This is on a Wednesday. I woke up. I was feeling good, but I can kind of feel my body like it was healing itself. It's kind of hard to explain. All my readings was good. That morning I woke up, my blood pressure was 150 over 95, and then, like I said, my blood pressure usually 140 over 90, and to me, 150 over 95, that was okay, as long as don't get up to 200. And me and my wife went for another drive. We just couldn't stay in the house. And I noticed that I was doing a lot of coughing and stuff like that, trying to clear my throat, and that wasn't normal for me. So I was taking I did talk to my doctor, and he prescribed some cough medicine. So we got that. Then on February the 11th, Thursday, I woke up. Finally felt rested for the first time in months. Felt rested. And this was the last day that we had to go through quarantine. That Thursday, February 11th. So we had to finish that full day out. So I got up and I cooked me some bacon and eggs and toast and had some orange juice. So February the 12th, that Friday was our last day. We was out of quarantine. So we went out and we picked up some things and went to look at ATVs because we was hearing that some bad weather was gonna start coming in. So I made sure everything was in order on that. Got gas, and so it was good timing. And then on February the 13th, that Saturday, things was like normal. Everything was good. We ordered some more stuff on Instacart, and thank God for Instacart. Oh my God! If you don't have an Instacart and you got COVID, you need an instant cart. Because we ordered on that thing, man, almost every other day. We had to get orange juice, we had to get soup and stuff like that. So we use the Instacart, and I love it. I love the Instacart. And then that Sunday was Valentine's Day, So that Sunday, my wife, we went and got her tested. We went to the CVS, so she did the 2-day thing. So we went through the drive-through, and she did the swab and everything and got tested, but she won't get her results until a couple of days later. Um, so we went and also to the soul food restaurant, had some oxtail, turkey wings, hamburger steak, greens. We had dressing, mac and cheese, and bread, and we just enjoyed ourselves that thanks. I mean, Valentine's Day. So on February 15th, my wife had to log back on and start her work because she was out of her quarantine. And she didn't like that, but she had to go ahead and do it. That day right there, we noticed that my wife went to check on her mom and clean her up today. She wasn't eating. She checked her temperature, and she had an elevated temperature. So my wife was getting really stressed. Maybe she got COVID, but we found out later that she had a UTI. So we called her doctors trying to get some medicine, and she had some from the last time. So we started giving her that stuff, and that was really stressful for my wife because she thought, oh my God, I gave my mom COVID, and just had two aunts passed away, and she was feeling bad. But if she didn't have COVID, she was having a UTI infection, and we started giving her medicine, and all that stuff cleared up. And that same day, this was on a Monday, they was talking about this storm cold front supposed to come in. So we went to the food truck and got our generator. That generator is a 11,000 watts, so I can run my whole house off of that generator, which I got it wired up that way to run my whole house, except the AC. You can't run that. We didn't need any AC, but we ran the furnace, so we could run the furnace. So we picked that generator up about noon, and we bought some more food and everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, boom, the lights went out. The cold front started coming in. This is on February the 15th. And I looked at my wife, and she said, you prayed for rain, and now we got a storm coming in. So I thought about it. I said, you got to be careful what you ask God to do for you, because you can pray for rain and he might send you a storm. So be careful. So that whole week, my boss had called me again. He said, well, we got to shut down a pipeline for another week or so because of this storm, this cold front coming in. I said, okay. So I went through the process and make sure my house and everything was set up. Like I said, that Monday night, all power went out in our neighborhood. So I put my generator in, and I can run my whole house. So the temperature in our house didn't fall below 70 degrees. I was fortunate for that, because everybody else, or maybe it was just a couple of light houses here that was able to have power. I was one of them, and it's another house about 5 houses down that had a Generac. So when their power go off, that Generac automatically kick on. That's about an $8,000 to $10,000 generator. So it runs, and whenever your power kicks off, your natural gas kicks in and turn your power back on. So on February the 16th, like we out of quarantine, we were still without power, and they was turning the power off and on, what they call it, the rolling blackouts. They would leave the power on for 2.5 hours, then they'd turn it off for 8 hours, turn it back on. It was terrible. I felt for my neighbors because some of them are young. They don't know about this stuff, and they had to try to find some hotels, some of them sleeping in their cars. And a lot of people died during this time from carbon monoxide, sleeping in their vehicles. Not on my street. I just seen it on the news that people be in their garage with their vehicle on, sleeping. So that carbon monoxide is some bad stuff. So a lot of people don't know about it, but that carbon monoxide from them generators and stuff can get in your house and it can kill you. So on February the 17th, Wednesday, my wife finally got her results back, and the results came back about 2:30 p.m. and her results was negative. Oh my gosh, she was happy because she missed seeing our little nephew. She wanted to see him, and she said she wasn't gonna go around him until she tests negative. So she did test negative. Her results came back. Like I said, it took she tested that Sunday, but we didn't get it back to that Wednesday. That's probably because of all the storm and this cold front had come in, so a lot of stuff was delayed a little bit. So my wife was feeling good. She tested negative. So on February the 19th, Friday, I went and took one of the instant tests, and I tested negative. So after all of this stuff, I didn't. Like I said, I wasn't gonna go back to the job until I test negative. I didn't have to do the test, but just for peace of mind for me and the people around me, I wanted to take the test. So I did test negative. on that, and everything worked out really fine for me. The job they had called, uh, and that was Friday, so I got a phone call that Saturday asked me, can I travel that Monday? And that Monday was the 22nd. I said yes. I was feeling good. I had tested negative. So it worked out for me, and I went on the job and I started working, and everything worked out. But this COVID stuff, it did affect me and my family, but I'm glad it happened because now I know we got a little bit of immunity to it because our body had made adjustments. And I noticed that I started getting a lot of emails. I thought this stuff was private about me donating plasma. Companies calling wanting to get plasma from people who have already had COVID. And I'm saying, how did they know I had COVID? Know, I guess once you take it, it goes out on this thing and Quest or whatever. And I don't know how they get that information, but I don't know if they knew I had COVID or it's just they just send a email. But it was strange how they sent it once I had COVID. So now I'm negative. So eventually I'm gonna go and test and see if I got the antibodies for it, and I probably do. It's probably not as strong as my wife because she had a lot more symptoms. And when you start talking to a lot of people, you'll find out that a lot of people have already had this COVID. They just didn't tell nobody, or some of them are asymptomatic that didn't know they had it. So a lot of people already had it and already got some immunities build up to it. And I called my doctor and asked, since I've had COVID, can I take the vaccine? Either Moderna or the Pfizer. And he said that people that have already had it need to wait 3 months to take it because they want to get these other people that have these other conditions, older people or people who haven't had COVID, because somehow we got a little bit immunity. So we're okay for a few months. But I've heard people getting it again after they've had it. You have these different variants and all that. But this February was a perfect storm for me, man. I didn't know, but it did make me rethink a lot of things, how blessed and how fortunate we really are, even though we went through this. And I'm glad I went through it. I'm glad because if it wasn't for my wife getting tested, I wouldn't have never knew I had it because I wouldn't have had the symptoms. I would have went through the process thinking I never had COVID. Now I'm kind of happy I had it because now maybe I got some kind of immunity to it. So this is the story I wanted to share with you guys. It's it's real. It's out there. I don't know how it got out there. They say this new one is variant from Africa, Australia. It's easily spread. I don't know if this stuff is like dust now. I don't know if the masks are helping. I'm pretty sure they did. They do help. But just be careful out there and just be safe. Like I said, the biggest things that I noticed, if you lose your sense of smell, more than likely you probably have COVID or you recovering from it. Like I'm okay now. Everything's fine with me. I got energy. I feel like a new person. My blood pressure is under control. Um, my oxygen level, I have no problems breathing, but some people have difficult times with this, like my nephew and like my wife. My son didn't have no symptoms. I guess he's 21, man. He act like it wasn't nothing, like, oh, when he found out he had COVID, oh, no problem. I know a lot of my friends already had it, so these kids discuss this stuff. We the one that's getting stressed out about it because we watching the news and we letting it get in our mind and we're gonna die. You're gonna die anyway. You're gonna die regardless. But sometimes fear kills you. Fear. And even the fear in life, fear of anything, fear of failure, fear of doing things. I step out on stuff now. Like I got my food truck. I do YouTube. I do quizzes, and I just do other stuff. I don't have time to sleep. I'm gonna sleep when I die, but I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna rest, and I'm gonna enjoy my life. I'm not gonna stop doing what I'm doing. Me and my wife, we're gonna go and keep going. We're gonna wear our masks and make sure everything's safe, but we're not gonna trap ourselves in the house. I call it prison and not live life. We're gonna go. And right now, I'm just gonna get me a few pounds of crawfish, me and my son, and I'm gonna drink a few beers. Like I said, I wanted to lose 25 pounds, and drinking them beers ain't gonna help it. So, but I'm gonna drink me a beer, but I'm gonna get on the treadmill or the elliptical and exercise too. I'm not gonna stop living, guys. So if this video helps, subscribe to my channel. I know a lot of people don't want to share information like this, but I think this probably will help other people. And if I can get it, I think anybody can get it. And I've been talking to people. When you talk to a person long enough, you'll find out they had it. They just didn't share it's crazy. Maybe we might form some kind of what they call it, a herbal immunity. There we go. I think that's what it is. So have a great day and may God bless.